our name is a big part of who we are. So it carries a lot of frequency. So at times, actually, there are people who don't even like their names. When you ask them about their names, it's kind of like maybe they shorten it, but yet when it comes to whatever business deal, work, and all that being paid, they're using their full name. And then they expect things to flow, but yet they have this resistance towards their name. So that's accepting yourself. It's even connected to how do you feel even about your name when you share your name.
Hello, I'm John Brink and I'm podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And British Columbia and Canada is a beautiful country, obviously, and British Columbia, a beautiful province. Today, a very, very special day because I have a very, very special guest. Her name is Gao Motsemme. Gao, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Brink.
So what I like about you, you are very interesting in what you do. You're counseling, you're interviewing people, and especially people that have issues with a number of things. So why don't you kind of tell us what you do?
Awesome. What I love to do actually, before we can even get any further, I want to start by greeting your audience. And I love to do that in my native language. I originally come from Botswana in Southern Africa, and I've been residing here in Germany for 10 years, over 10 years. So greetings is more like an activation of that ancestral lineage, those who walked before us. And as you are listening, probably you have your native language that you know. The question is, what does that even mean? So I'm just connecting you with your lineage as we start. So dumelang, lokai. And dumelang in direct translation, it means agree. And we are here with the amazing Brink at Brink podcast. So my question to you is, what are you agreeing to every time when you show up to listen here? What is your intention? And lokai is, where are you? As in, locate yourself. Are you here fully with us, or part of you is still holding into what should have been? You know, you are stuck somewhere. So with that, I'm just inviting you to be present with us. And one thing that I've learned with change, which is the amazing thing, is choosing not to know. And I know you know a lot of things. You've heard many listeners, you've read many books. So I'm just inviting you, as we are here today, may you choose not to know. Let's not know and see what will come through as we come from that blank slate of not knowing. And with that said as well, when you choose not to know, don't be in your head and listen with what you normally use to listen, because when you do that, we are just pulling from the history, what you already know. But when you're talking about wisdom, wisdom comes in the present moment. And when you listen today, choose to listen from your body. Allow your body to communicate with you rather than telling your body what you know. That is, listen to those sensations. Watch if you're having a twitch, heaviness somewhere, pain somewhere, and all of that is welcome here. We're just going to pull lots of chairs and bring in the chair for the shame, the guilt, the anger, all of those things. We're just going to have a conversation with all aspects of ourselves. So thanks for having me.
Very interesting. I like that. Now, where are you physically located now?
I'm currently in Germany.
In what part of Germany or what city?
In Nuremberg.
Oh yeah, beautiful. So I was born in Holland, so you're familiar with Holland, obviously.
Yeah.
And I was born in the northeastern part of Holland.
Okay, that's lovely.
And I came to Canada 60 years ago when I was 23 years old, and with the dream of building a lumber mill. And a little bit of background is that I was born during the Second World War. We were liberated by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945. And that made such an impression on me, a little boy, 5 years old,
Yeah.
that had lived in war and hunger and all kinds of other things that go on during terrible wars, suffered PTSD, the inner child, and all of those things that
Yeah.
come with it. And then, but I was so impressed by the Canadians that liberated us, April the 12th, 1945, that I knew from that point forward I would go to
Mm.
Canada. And so I tried to go when I was 17. My parents wouldn't let me. And then I went when I was 23. And I wanted to go to Canada with nothing. And so I had a suitcase, couldn't speak the language, didn't know soul, didn't know have a job. Started with a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes. And when I left Amsterdam, I had $150. And I knew I was going to go to British Columbia, and I wanted to build a lumber mill. And when I came
Wow.
to Montreal and took the train across Canada for 4 days, 5 nights, landed in Vancouver, as you know, a beautiful city, and then
Yeah.
went to the immigration office, and there was a German fella there, and I couldn't speak English, and I could speak some German coming from Holland, and I asked him,
Yeah.
that I want to build a lumber mill. Where should I go? And he said, go to Prince George. Now, Prince George, where I
Wow.
am today, is
Wow.
500 miles north or 800 kilometers north of Vancouver. And in the center, in the middle of British Columbia, lots of timber, lots of trees. And so that's where I started. I came off the bus and I had my 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I counted my money. I can still see the bus station here where I'm sitting now in my studio, and I counted my
That's
money at least 3 times. I had exactly $25.47. But what I
wow.
had lots of attitude, no matter how tough things are, I always believe that tomorrow will be a better day. And then
Absolutely.
passion, whatever I do, I give it 150%. And the other one is work ethic. I work harder than anybody. And what follows, if you do, is success. So I usually get up
Absolutely.
even now at 5:30 in the morning, and I always think I'm late. I always make my bed, and then I always give the day 150%.
That's amazing.
So you know a
That's
little bit
amazing.
about my background. So I did build a lumber mill and quite a few lumber mills actually, and I built other businesses. It's not about my businesses, but all the things that I wanted to do, I accomplished. We have 10 different companies. I learned to speak the language, as you already noticed. And then
Yeah.
I started writing books, and I'm a speaker, in-demand speaker, do keynotes, and obviously very active in podcasting and doing all those kind of things. So
Yeah.
at 84, I'm still a very active CEO that has
Very
gone
impressive.
through all the interesting waves. So yeah.
That's
So
quite
so
that's quite
here I am.
impressive. Yeah, here you are. Because even when you shared, like when you started sharing about how old you were when like, with the Second World War and all that, actually, like it's quite interesting because what I do is I help professionals and entrepreneurs break free from generational patterns, imprints, and patterns, and tap into that unwavering self-love and embody their confidence, so that they can rock it in the bedroom and boardroom and beyond. So,
I like that.
so one thing that happens is like when I just step in, there is a certain imprint of energy that kind of first thing I just get an imprint of something. And the first thing that came through was more ancestral issues, especially the masculine side. And when you spoke about like 1945 and what happened, because by then my mother was 3 years. My parents, I was born when my mom was 40 and my father was 60 years old. So when it comes to the imprints and all that was happening back then, I would say I also received that firsthand from my parents because of the age difference. So somehow, even though I may be young now, but still, I grew up from that. This is how it has to be. All the PTSD, the cultural stuff, and all that. It's kind of like the environment that I grew up in, because I was born. When I was born, I believe I just knew who I was, and I had this unapologetic way of being. And coming from a very traditional background, there was also, this is not how you get to be. This is how you get to be. So there was kind of like that back and forth friction of, this is who I am. No, this is who you get to be, especially as a girl child and all that. So for me,
Right.
that was like my background and the back and forth with my parents, because we share with our children what we know. And I just love your story as well, from that young, knowing what you want to do, or even the what was happening and how it imprinted on you. But on the other hand, for you, it was kind of like, I love this liberation, and this is what I'm gonna do out of it, which is amazing. It's like something that is built in you and it still shines through you. So I grew up in an environment where I would say, somehow, even me, deep within me, I also knew like there is something that I'm here to do, even though I didn't know what that exactly was. But when it comes to leaving the country, somehow I also knew that I'm gonna do that. So there was that conversation that happened with my parents as well, where at times I'll just dream and tell them I'm gonna relocate. But my plan was relocating to the United Kingdom. I didn't think it was gonna be Germany. But my parents were against it. I ended up relocating later, but my mom has already transitioned. So, but still, it's a conversation that we had, of which I believe somehow, maybe when she was alive, if at all she was alive, maybe something would have held me back, but I don't think that much. But I think it would have maybe have a bit of guilt, because at times we want to do something, but our parents, because of fear, it's not like they don't want to, but it's kind of like, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna see her again, or am I gonna see him again? So there was a bit of that. No, you can't do that because you don't know what you're talking about, because none of my family also relocated. Even when I was planning to move to Germany, the question was like, of all the countries, why Germany? Because there's that preconceived notion of racism and a lot of stuff. And also the language, on the other hand, when it comes to Europe, it's kind of like, what are you going to do about the language? But for me, the drive was, it's a challenge, but at the end of the day, I'm going to do it. Like, you relocated, and I bet you can relate as well when you move into a different country and you don't even speak the language, but because of the determination, you are willing to do it, and at the end you make it, which is, I'm very honored to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then the foundation was attitude, passion, work ethic, and then staying the course and never give up. And, and having gone through a number of challenges, as you have, reading your bio, is that, things were not always difficult, not always easy, I should say,
Yeah.
and quite difficult from the time I was born during the Second World War. And then the other part that some people sometimes think, respectfully, is that if there is war and after the war is over, everything goes back to normal. It simply doesn't. It could be generations that it carries
Yeah.
on until it gets
Yeah.
back to a sense of normality. And I still remember as kids, especially in Holland during the Second World War, the winter of 1944-45 was very difficult, the coldest winter on record. And then 1944 was considered the hunger year, where all the food had been cut off for Holland. And every morning we would go as kids. I had a brother and a sister, they were a year and 2 years older than me. And every morning we would go out with gunny sacks into the railroad yards and pick up anything edible or burnable. And the reason that we did as kids is the Germans wouldn't shoot us. They would boot us one, and the next morning we'd be back again. But remembering that, and it kind of forms your life in that foundation. Directly, indirectly, it stays with you. In fact, I got counseling for the inner child. At one point, having some challenges in life with my wife, that is still my wife today, but before we were married, needed some counseling, and so we got counseling. And then the counselor said, I had no idea. He said, I'd like to talk to John alone about the inner child. I didn't even know what it was. And and
Yeah.
and uh, and so we talked about it, and so then I got counseling for that. Very emotional, but
Yeah.
very real, right? So
Yeah.
those kind of things, and so it kind of parts of it still stay with me even after all these years, as part of me, and then obviously then climatizing or getting used to a new country, and particularly Canada and British Columbia in particular, is interesting from my perspective because it's a mosaic of people from all over the world that are around
Yeah.
us, and
Yeah.
and that made it very, very interesting. And then it's also a land of opportunity, and especially when I got here in 1965, I've seen a lot of things. I've gone through a lot of ups and downs, but still, even now today, still as somebody that is nearly 84, I'm very contented in terms of I love Canada. I love what I did and all the things that have been behind me, and then I was going to show you a picture. I also
Yeah.
became an author, and I'm finishing a book that's coming out in 2 weeks. This one is that. Can you read it?
Okay. Yeah. Living young, dying old.
Yeah, it's a picture of me. So I'm into staying fit and healthy. Go to the gym, and I'm preparing for going to the Arnold's in 2025 when I'm 85. I'm supposed to be the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America. So accidental more than by choice, but uh, I I did what everybody else does. They, at the end of every year, you make choices. Say, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. And I did that too for every year. And then one of them was going to the gym and staying fit and healthy. Well, going to the gym after 2 weeks, then you find 100 reasons as why you're too busy to go to the gym. And I knew I had to
Yeah.
stay there. And so that's what I did. And after hiring a trainer for about 6 years, someday somebody said to me, "Have you ever thought about competing?" And I said, "Me?" And then started competing, gave me a challenge, and then competed and did very well, actually.
I love that. That's really inspiring. And what I love about your journey and even your commitment to you, because that's actually like the first priority. If you don't make yourself a priority, then everything else is going to fall off because everything is a reflection of who you are. And even when I look at when you're talking about programming, a lot of it it's more like when you get older, this is how things get to be, pains. We accept a lot of nonsense because we believe it's age instead of appreciating that as we age there is wisdom and we can do things better, different than how we actually did it when we were young. So you are really an inspiration and even inspired. Just a few minutes that we've been together, I am really inspired because that commitment, it's giving back. You can see the results of it, and it comes as well with giving yourself challenges. Rather than doing
Exactly.
the same thing that everyone has done, but you are willing to do different things that no one has done. Because if we think that, okay, fine, like, because it's start here in the mind. What's gonna happen when I get to this age, and then we start relaxing? Oh, I'm old. I'm not working anymore, and it's quite interesting because one of the things, especially even with my work, especially if you've like given everything to your work, you work hard, that's like your only focus, you forget yourself. And I also love, what I love mostly is that you even had I would say, privilege of going to do the work and connecting with your inner child. Like that's necessary, is the core of our being. This is why even now you're still engaging in a lot of things because you are still with that part of yourself. And the reason why people somehow fall off and disconnect and find life boring is because they've disconnected from this other aspect of themselves that is more curious, and they're also creating from the old templates of the pain and all the wars and everything that they were born in. If we don't, which is for me, I call it the freedom of individuality. That is, as much as we embrace our ancestral lineages, but at the same time we get to choose which templates am I creating from. Am I creating from the old templates that I inherited, or I'm gonna take what serves me and leave what doesn't? And most importantly, bring in the inner child so that the inner child doesn't feel, because when the inner child doesn't feel safe, it's hard for you to really commit. Even when it comes to relationships, you're just gonna act from the inner child. When it comes to leadership, it's always inner child, because if the inner child doesn't feel safe, every, I would say, challenge conversation where some, it's not like, I always say, when you're leading from the inner child, you want someone who is gonna feed into your ego. But when you need someone who is either good or is challenging your way, the way you do things, you feel threatened. And the only way is kind of like, I'm going to be defensive. And when you come in from the ego, you're going to make the other person hurt instead of appreciating what other people are bringing and also allowing yourself to grow, which shows up even in our relationship. When someone is not willing to grow, they're going to look for a partner who is more, I would say, like kind of like less than, someone that I can control, someone that can feel better than, rather than finding a partner who is going to support you, celebrate you in your growth, and also hold you accountable. I love this. I
Exactly.
love this quote of, treat a man as he ought to be. He may become who he was meant to become. And I believe when it comes to relationship, that's how it has to be. And even when you're talking about leadership, it starts with us leading ourselves. Because if we can't lead ourselves, we can't lead anyone. And you are a true example of that leadership, leading yourself, and then people choose whether to follow or not. Like me being here, hearing your story, and even at the age that you're in, but still young and still going. I want to be like you when I get to your age. I choose to follow you because of what you're saying. It inspires me to say, I want to be like him when I get to that age. And you are not using control to say, come with me because I know better or anything. It's kind of like, let's learn together, let's work together, just be my friend. And the path gets much easier when we walk at that level or we work together like that. And that's what we call leadership.
Yeah, and then and that is correct. And then the beauty of it is that the age is, in my opinion, just a number, but the key is quality of life more than anything. And then quality of life means diet and becoming aware and being preemptive. I've done all the bad things. At one point in my life, I drank more than I should have. I was smoking at one point in my life, and so what I found though is that starting probably about 20 years ago, that that your body is immensely forgiving, but it will only tolerate abuse for so long, and that's why so many people, the last 10 years of their life are extremely difficult because of all the challenges that they have, and so what I'm trying to do, hence my book, Living Young, Dying Old, is saying that there is no need for that, and obviously, I that's how I look, So, and that's
That's amazing.
even now, as I said, I'm getting ready for the Arnold's in 2025, and at
Yeah.
85, I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder, but it's not only about that part. The reason that I do it is that simply because it gave me a goal and an objective. It takes me to the gym to stay fit. And at the same time, what I'm trying to do is diet, extremely important. And more
Yeah.
people are becoming more aware of it through YouTube and information, but still but we do, and I'm lucky. My wife is a vegetarian. I'm vegan, probably 80 or 90-10. And,
Okay.
and I do all the shopping. So if I go to a grocery store, I walk in the outside, not in the processed food, because I don't know
Yeah.
what is in it. So it's mainly plant-based, and I'm careful with my diet and then physically stay fit. And mentally, another very, very important part, be at peace with who you are. You know, accept who you are. And I say that to a lot of young people in particular that are so preoccupied about, I don't look good, this is not good, that is not good. It said, no, you are special. There's only one of
Yeah.
you on this whole earth that is you. And you know, be at peace with who you are and proud of who you are and all the things that you do, you know. So
That's key right there. And I just love you mentioned the body as well. Because let's just start with acceptance. You know, I always go to acceptance, like the way with the work that I'm doing, and also even my experience. As I mentioned that when I was young, I just came with this thing like, hey, what's going on? And being excited about life. But we live in a world where when someone is different and they're showing up the way they're showing up, people start to ask questions like, why is she being the way she is? And I still remember when I was just a little girl, there were kind of like questions, but it was more like, is she really want to finish school? I mean, I was like young, probably 5, 6, 7 years, and somebody's questioning whether I'm going to finish school just because of my outward personality. So it was already questioning like, oh, she's not going to finish school, probably I'll fall pregnant or something like that. And we hear this thing, they already create something when people are talking, we interpret it however we interpret it. And even for me, when my mother used to say, you are not like my other children, somehow there's a part of me that created that belief that maybe something is wrong with me and feeling that I'm not accepted. And another thing, which is like huge that we often put a blind eye on, we are born into a family and we are given a name and a surname that has been used for many generations. There's lots of frequency because our name is a big part of who we are. So it carries a lot of frequency. So at times, actually, there are people who don't even like their names. When you ask them about their names, it's kind of like maybe they shorten it, but yet when it comes to whatever business deal, work, and all that being paid, they're using their full name and then they expect things to flow, but yet they have this resistance towards their name. So that accepting yourself, it's even connected to how do you feel even about your name when you share your name? Where are you coming from? Do you feel like it's just because I'm forced to, but I wouldn't prefer that? I would rather prefer this. It starts with that. And when you look at your name, even your surname, what does it carry? What happened in your lineage? Which for me, it's something that I felt just being curious and getting to know, even like when you're talking about that being special, it still comes with that. Like you said, you were born during the time of the World War and all that. That's also, it shows that it took, I mean, there's a lot of wounding that happened. But on the other hand, how special are you? Despite all that was happening, but you chose to be born at that time and you are still here, you are still going. I mean, it carries both because when you look at it, even the yin and yang, we mostly want to push other things aside and we embrace the other part. But when we look into, I believe in those shadows, when we look into those shadows, we're going to find some treasures, but we don't have to run away from it. I've met people, whether some people were maybe in the US, but they come from here in Germany. And it was quite interesting that I'm here in Germany and they come from here, but they've changed their names. They don't want to hear anything but they are sick, like they are having accidents. A lot of things is happening, which shows there is a disconnection from their body, especially from their roots. Because when you're talking about going back to the ancestral lineage, this is our foundation. It's like the root that holds you, that anchors you. So when you disconnect from that and you don't even want to hear about it, or you've got so much anger, what are you doing? Because that means there is a part of you that is not accepting this, even those special circumstances, no matter what war, no matter the challenges, it's the special circumstances that you still came out of. And there is something that even those who came before you went through for you to still be here to have, like right now, we can have this conversation. It's before we couldn't, it was just a matter of there were letters before it was something else. So we have this opportunity where we are really one. When we say we are one, it's like literally that. It's not just an idea. And before it was not that, there was a lot of separation, and we are not denying that there is still a lot of things that we need to navigate, and that's still a part of life. So accepting ourselves, start even with the name, start even looking at things, where we're coming from, what is it that really transpired, and not looking at it from making it wrong, but getting to understand. Because when we look at it as a soul, already, you read my bio that I was separated with my children for 5 years. So you don't we don't choose for things to happen the way they happen, and we do the best that we can with what we have. And as we go through life, you realize that there is no manual that is given to any parent to say this is how you parent the soul, because souls are coming through with their own lessons that they're going to learn somehow. So are we open to be willing to learn as we go through those trials and tribulations, and also find the beauty that is in us? Because I talk about this, that patriarchy has made men powerless by shutting off their hearts, and it made women powerless by shutting off their womb. That is when it comes to the sexual connection. Men are connected sexually, but it's more still of the sexual activity rather than embracing that sexual energy and using it for the highest and greatest good, and also respecting it. But when it comes to women, it's more like we are open from the heart, even though at a certain level we've decided to shut it off and try to prove that I can also do it. When we wanted to be seen and all that, we started more imitating men rather than just being the embodiment of who we are, which is also embracing that feminine power in a relationship, rather than the whole power over and I'm better than you and all that, because there's a lot of competition. There is no wholeness. It's more like I'm gonna be half and I'm gonna look for somebody, which often when I look at the dynamics that have been playing for a long time, it's more like as a man, you don't get to feel your emotion, you don't get to connect, you don't get to do the healing. But you're gonna find a woman who is more open in that area. This woman is gonna process her emotions and your emotions. As women as well, it's kind of like I'm not gonna create what I desire to create. I'll find a man who is going to provide the security, and then the codependency starts. So, and even when I look at it, especially when you're talking about the body, this is the right body, this is not the right body. Because our body is beautiful as long as we are feeding it right, we are nurturing it, we are nourishing it, and just accept whatever type, and just, it's beautiful. But we have been conditioned to believe this is the perfect body, this is not the right body, and we deny who we are. We want something that is outside of us.
Be
But yet the
ashamed
beauty is,
of it,
oh,
even, right? So, and
shame is huge.
that you said is so much correct. So
Yeah,
if we then talk about relationships in particular, then men are different than women. And what did you say? Men are from Mars and women are from Venus.
yeah,
So obviously to build that best relationship in which a partnership or a couple, or married or not, are complementary to each other and distinctly different, but need each other as well. And it then becomes a question of that it and I'm not the expert, you more so than I am, obviously. That's one of your specialties, is saying that the basis could well be respect and friendship that then builds a relationship. Would
absolutely.
that be?
And yeah, it's true. And even in the respect, here's the thing: when I look at relationship dynamics, or even whether there was pain, there was hurt, and all that, it's easier for us to look outside and say, "Oh, maybe I'm attracting people who don't respect me," and we just get angry, we blame. And I mean, I went through that journey, and I still remember when I got to really understand what respect is, especially when I was going through my divorce. There was a part of me that, where I felt like this man did not accept me. And I didn't realize that there's a part of me that also did not accept who he was. Especially sometimes, even when we're looking at the good and the bad, sometimes we think just because maybe, okay, there was an addiction, alcohol addiction. So there was a part of me that was like, okay, if he can quit this, if he can get over with this addiction, or if this person can change and this, then things would be okay. So what does that mean? It means even at that moment, we are not accepting the person as they are. Are we falling in love with the person that is in front of us, or are we falling in love with a potential? Because if at all I'm holding into, okay, I'm going to give you a year for you to change, that means I'm not in love with you. I'm in love with an idea of who you could be, you know. And at times, even the projection, even when I'm talking about that respect, it's kind of like we are projecting even our own potential. Instead of unleashing it, we're looking at somebody and be like, okay, there is a potential here. And we fall in love with that potential instead of working on ourselves. So with the respect, it still comes with ourselves. How much are we respecting ourselves? How much are we respecting our passion? How much are we respecting our purpose? Because if at all we are respecting who we are and we feel worthy, we won't make the decision from that deficiency where it's kind of like, I can see there is a brokenness here, but I'm gonna fix that. I'm gonna make this person be who I want this person to be, because that means there's gonna be somehow a discrepancy that exists between the two of us. So what is it that we want? Because it starts with us. This is who I am. These are my standards. These are my boundaries. These are my no. And when you meet somebody, what is it that you are choosing? Not from, because when you're coming from, I don't feel worthy and all that, it's easier for you to lower your standards, because it's kind of like, if I get to maybe tolerate this addiction, maybe this person, when he's over this addiction, he'll just be proud of me because I helped him get over this. I still want something. I'm manipulating. I'm not fully loving. I'm coming in because I want him to do this, and then from there he can give me love. It's kind of like I have to work hard for love. And especially for people who are very the professional people working hard, and you going up the ladder and all that, we're used to working hard. So it's kind of like, I'm going to work hard for love as well. So I have to tolerate all the nonsense, find someone who's broken. And maybe when it gets to a certain point, then they can love me and reward me for my hard work. But the truth of it, like you said in the beginning, we are perfect as we are. And we don't have to work hard for love. We're just worthy of it. The question is, are we open to embrace it? Because even that respect is the openness to receive it. When I talk about the principles of intimacy, I talk about honesty, openness, trust, vulnerability. Like, they're at the core. Am I willing to be myself when I'm with you? Do I trust you to hold me? Do I trust to share with you and communicate with you what I feel, my desires? Because even when you're looking at relationship, one of the top three reasons why relationships fail is communication. So one of the topic that is also big on is when it comes to that sexual energy, sexual desires, and all that. So if communication just on a normal basis to talk about our emotions, to talk about a few things, when it comes to that intimacy, then it's hard for people. And then we hold back. Some people, I talk about trauma. And when we talk about trauma, people think it's more like big things happening. But what I've realized with the people that I've worked with is just that trauma is happening on a daily basis. And this is why we need more people who are present and also aware or mindful. Because for women, for a long time, women have been conditioned to believe that they have to use sex to get love. I have to sleep with a man and maybe they can love me back. So at times, they are not fully open, or even their body is not ready to be penetrated, but they're afraid of telling their partner that I don't feel like it, because what if the person doesn't love me? What if they go and look for it somewhere else? So we need more men who can also be present enough and be fully attuned to realize that my partner is not really who she is normally. Because when you look at the depth of that orgasmic bliss that you can have when your partner is open and trusting and just allowing you to take them to places that they've never been, it's different. You can feel there is no friction or anything. There is just a dance that is happening between a man and a woman. And I believe this is the same dance that we get to do when we create in life, when we're making love with life, when you're going through those goals that you have. So when someone is not fully present and connected to be aware of that, they're gonna penetrate that partner when that partner is not ready. Eventually they become numb, because if they're not having any joy, it's kind of like, okay, fine, do whatever that you get to do, and then you get done with it, and then I can sleep. So it's kind of like, I'm gonna take that, okay, fine, I slept with you, so what do you want? There is no connection. But for people who are fully present and connected, you can tell. And you may even stop and just say, I wanna make love to you. I don't wanna harm you or anything, and I can feel you are not in what's going on. Or maybe just cuddle your partner, because you can feel that at that moment something is going on. So we need to be present for a relationship to thrive. We need both, which is what I call the sacred masculine and that sacred feminine to be fully present. Because even when it comes to communication, communication is not only what we are saying. We may be talking right now, but there are things that we are also saying without the words, which is our body language. The energy is also speaking. So there is more that we need to be aware of when we are in a relationship.
The critical part is what you said, and I believe that, and I agree with you, is being effective in communications, which is probably the hardest thing to do between males and females, and then obviously, our success rate in terms of marriages, nearly 50% of them fail. And I believe a lot of them fail, because of lack of communications, in particular communications, and then the system doesn't help, because then the legal professions become involved, and then it becomes even worse. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, and you're the expert more so than I am, although I've lived 84 years, and obviously I've been there and gone through all the things that you have, I have in a way, is that for males in particular, speaking from the male perspective, they have difficulty to open up their emotions a lot of times, for whatever crazy reasons they may be, but males don't do that, maybe the one reason, which is unfortunate. And then if there are challenges that you can't handle or that become difficult, to seek counseling is usually a good way to deal with them, to make them go away. Doesn't just happen simply. The key is, at what point do we have to, as a couple, seek direction and understanding? And then the biggest part about it all is likely, in particular as you get older, and and I can speak in particular about being well over mid-80s, that to be in a relationship that is a friendship, first and foremost, and respect, and then understanding, and then having the ability to communicate and saying, okay, this delicate, okay, so let's find a way in which we can create a setting in which we can talk about it, not in the bedroom necessarily, but go out for dinner and have a nice dinner, blah, blah, blah. All the things that is the approach to it, is that how do, and that's the challenges and the specialty, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that you have, is saying that how do we find that way, even in not only in the day-to-day things in terms of relationships, but also in relationship between male and female, whatever that may be, or whatever stage that may be at, is critically important. But one of the most important parts about it is likely being at peace with who you are, and not trying to be somebody that you're not. Just be who you are, because at the end of the day, that's the one that will emerge, So and sometimes we think too much about all the other things that appear to be important, which they are not. Having a whole lot of money appears to be the key to happiness. Well, it isn't. It likely is just the opposite. And then and then having a whole lot of persons from the other sex, either male side or female side, admire you being a female, that's what I meant, or being a male, having a whole lot of the other side chase you around because of whatever. That's not it either, and a lot of women in particular that I know are very attractive from a physical perspective, are difficult, usually finding relationship because the attraction can well be for the wrong reason. So the whole process was designed by nature to make it very beautiful, but also very challenging, and to be able to be open about who you are and to be at peace with who you are, is very important, in my view.
I just love what you shared, like everything. And here's the thing: when I received this codes, I just got a download, and it came through as death, DEATH, and it's quite interesting because I laughed. I was like, "No, you're kidding! I'm not gonna be teaching about that death. Who's gonna listen to me if I'm talking about death?" And it's gonna like, yeah, but that's what you're gonna be teaching. When I received this to say we are being called to heal the death of the feminine. And this is not to say healing the woman or anything. We all both have the feminine and the masculine aspects. And the feminine is more connected to our intuition, our emotion. And this death, what it stands for, death, D is for our soul desires. When you are disconnected from your soul desires, you are disconnected from life. And I'm not saying desires as in like, I want to build a house, I want to you know, want all the money in the world and all that, because you can have money, but you are still poor if you are feeling miserable. Money does not make you rich. It doesn't. You may be attracting lots of men or lots of women and you sleeping with them because you are trying to fill the void from within, but it leaves you with more, with a
Emptiness.
bigger void, even more empty. And even when we're talking about that sexual energy, which is still the desires, that when you connect to the soul desires, it's still that sexual energy, which is who we are. But when we look at it from whether it's the religious system, cultural system, a lot of system when it comes to sex is something that we love it, but there is a lot of shadows, there's a lot of abuse, there is a lot of shame and all that. But when you are connected to something, when there is that flow, because this is a creation energy, it's a life force energy that makes you say yes to life. So at times it's the energy, like it's actually what we have in the world is the sexual activity. We have a lot of that, but we are lacking sensuality, which is that open heart, like you asked about men not feeling the emotion. That's what I meant by patriarchy. Patriarchy has made men powerless because there has been that conditioning that if you feel your emotions, you are not man enough. But which was nonsense. It was meant to say, don't quite be connected to yourself so that you can be easily controlled. Because if you don't feel, then you function with the head and then with your sexual area, but not with the heart, that you are connected from the gut, which is also part of your intuition. Where at times when I come and say I'm offering you billions, and a part of you is like, oh yes, when I have money, but when you feel into it, it's kind of like, yeah, that sounds good, but it doesn't feel good. That's your gut that is guiding you to say, it's tempting. Because when you live here in the mind, you can be easily manipulated. So the key is when you connect to the body. So the whole patriarchal wound, even though it's boosting the ego, it feeds the ego, but it doesn't nourish the soul. This is why a lot of people are empty. So it starts with that. How connected are you to your soul desires? How connected are you to your sexual energy? And I'm talking the individual connection. Because even when it comes like when later in years you are with your partner, it may not be like that sexual activity. It may, like, you don't have that, but when you are connected to that sexual energy, there is still that deep connection where you are having that intimacy, but it's not like the young you. It's different kind of intimacy that all of you, like the male and the man, or whatever relationship that you are in, you are connected to that on an individual level. Because when I'm talking about that sexual energy connection, it's at an individual level, that sexual sovereignty. Because it's still the same energy that when you connect to it, it will connect to that thing that turns you on. The reason why you wake up and do something, there is still that life force energy that is more curious. Who am I going to be? How can I express myself? What am I giving birth to? What am I giving birth to? Because I say this, you can't give birth to what you don't conceive. And when we're talking about the process of creation, it's the same process that we use when we create a child and have a child. It's the same process that we use when we're creating a design. Whether it's a book, you are planning to do something, it's in you. The body is a big part of it. And that comes the emotions, because emotions are the manifestation accelerator. When you want something, you can have the vision board, but if you are not connected to that, you don't feel it. It's going to be the vision board that is going to be there for a long time, but nothing of it is going to come to fruition because you don't feel it. And the universe responds to how we feel, not what we think we want. It gives us even what we need, not what we think we want. And here's the thing about emotions, because we're afraid of emotions. These are bad emotions. I want to feel, and especially with the self-development, we have this illusion of positivity. I just want to be positive, and we are holding to that, which I call toxic positivity. Because for me, when you're talking about being, it's being with all of you. When an inner child didn't feel seen, was not heard, there is a part of you that is throwing a tantrum, feeling like they forgot me. Now we are elders. Are we willing to be the parent to our inner children? Or we going to do exactly what was done to us by our parents to our inner children? Now, because we are chasing something. Because here is the self-sabotage. When you are chasing something and you are coming from not feeling safe to even feel your emotions, you are coming from whatever position roles that you are holding because they are your identity. And here's the thing, when it comes to those roles, whatever we do is the role that we hold into, we are attached to, it becomes our identity. That's why a lot of people, when either they retire or they lose their job, whatever, they lose themselves because they don't believe that they have it within them to create a new, whether it's your relationship crumbling or your job crumbling, or you are losing the material stuff that you have, you know that you are that. You can create that because all that you have is within you. And all that is outside is a reflection of who we are. And at times what is happening outside of us, it's like all that is collapsing because we have always held into it as our identity. It collapses so that the real you can emerge. I went through a situation where I was separated from my children. I didn't know who I was. And as women, we are conditioned to esteem ourselves and identify ourselves from our children. That's what we hold into. And as a woman, if you don't have a child, especially an African woman, it's kind of like, I don't know who I am. We feel powerless. There is shame and all that. And for me, that's when the message came through. I felt the nudge to write and I started
And you
writing.
turned it
And
around.
the message that came through was, who are you
Everything changed.
without your children, without your wife, without your husband, without your house, without a job? I started writing all these things. And at the end, I threw away the pen. I was like, but who am I? Who am I? And that's when the real it's a path that brought me to myself. And through that anger, that fire, and all that was happening. And at the same time, I was afraid, I was ashamed of the emotions that was coming through. And the message that came through while I was going through that was, embrace who you are. Embrace who, and this message was delivered by Mother Ocean. I was connected to the Mother Ocean. And here's what she said. She said, emotions are the evidence of life. If you don't feel your emotions, you are disconnected from life. And she said, look at me, I'm the ocean. Do you think people love me? People do not fully love me. They like the ocean, they like the beach, they wear all that things and they'll go by the beach, they like the surface. And if you just allowing people to see your surface, if you are allowing yourself to connect only the surface, you're not going to get to who you are. And even when it comes to, it was more talking about the work that I'm here to do. Even when it comes to the work that you are meant to do, you need to take people deep into the dark waters that they're afraid of. And the dark waters is those suppressed emotions. And we can't go there. We can't have those deep, intimate connection if there is parts of us that we are afraid of showing people. This is why vulnerability is a superpower, because the moment you can be yourself, you can connect with people on a deeper level, whether it's business relationships, whether it's romantic relationship, it's you being you and not having to defend anything. So the magic is there.
Yeah. And that is the key, really. Being at peace as to who you are and what you are, and being open and showing that, and not being worried about how you may come across or what it may look like, that it may be adverse, and all those kind of things. And and that goes through life, through all the stages of life, even as you get older or are older, is that you see the benefit of it, or you can see and usually see the lack of it, that people never quite got to that point, and subsequently are not overly happy in all the things they do. And because if you do, it will change your life, as it did for you, as it did for me, and can do for many others. Now, your specialty is that in particular you counsel people in that area to help them to discover their emotional you. And so help me in how you approach, how do you approach clients, or how do clients approach you? How do you build a business out of it?
Yeah. And this is like a gift of what has always been done. When you're talking about, this is why I'm African ancient quantum medicine. I just do the healing the way my ancestors did the healing. And that means when I connect with somebody, like I just said when we started it, I said the first energetic imprints that came through was more the masculine ancestral. That's like the first impression that I got. So when I connect with people, and this is the thing for me why my work is even best, especially for people who are having difficulties with expressing or connecting to their emotions, because we can have a conversation, but I'm not gonna get into your mind and try to get you to understand. The body is like something that I speak to. I step into your energetic fields, into your energetic aura, and I get to know what is happening. We can be having a conversation with somebody, even though I may ask a question, but on the other hand, I just know what is happening. And especially for men, what I've realized with men is that they work hard. They work hard, very hard. And they're disconnected from their body, like they are really numb to their body. So at times when I meet somebody, it doesn't matter, they may be looking all fine, attractive in a suit and all that. But the moment we connect, if the inner child is in so much pain, that's the first thing that will just imprint. Or at times they have a problem already, like a physical issue. Sometimes they're not aware of it. Some they're aware where the whole left arm is numb. There is a huge pain on the left side, like it's kind of like a heart attack waiting or stroke waiting to happen. And I remember there's one guy who came through, and the first thing when he came through, I felt like I'm just like maybe in a washing machine, like there's just the speed, all just going so fast that isn't like a car waiting to crash. And I stopped and I said, "Can you take a deep breath?" And he did. And I'm saying, "You're living your life on a really very fast lane." And this is like mindset is important, but people more like fuel the mind and they leave the body out. So they're always on the speed. Let's make more money. Let's make more money. And what came through first thing was like that pain on the heart, the whole left arm was numb. And I just shared with him, this is what is happening here. And he said, "Yeah, I know something is not right. I went to see the doctor and they said they can't find anything." And what I did is increase my insurance. And I was just laughing like proper logical thinking of guys sometimes. Like, okay, fine. It seems like something is happening. The doctors don't know what it is. I'm gonna increase the insurance so that my wife and children are fine when I die. But they don't care about that. They need you. And when we go to the core of it, the whole drive of let's make more money is that the father was rich when he was that little boy, and somehow some things were not done like legally, and so at some point the father went to prison. So as a young boy, there was a part of him that was like he enjoyed that life and he knew what his mother loved, and it's kind of like I'm gonna get into those shoes and even do it better than my father and do it legally. So he's still creating from those templates of his father. And here he is at a road where the body is communicating with him that his pain, something is not right. He's not looking at his child and thinking of that little boy to say, his father might have gone to prison, but with him, he's going to die. He's not looking at that little boy and say, I'm going to do it different. But then he's still going on and putting his health at risk. So what I do is like that, like the human, I'm a human MRI. I get into the body and find out where is the pain blocks, because it's physical pain, mental, emotional. Some things are ancestral. So I get to know that by just stepping into the energetic fields. And then when someone agrees and we work together, then I get to release that. And here's the thing, this is why I say it. When we're having a conversation, don't listen with the mind, listen with the body. Because as much as we are here having a conversation, every audience that I'm in, there is a different energetic imprints that are showing up. There is energy that I'm running through my body as we're speaking. And at the level that you are open to receive, there's a shift already that is happening. Sometimes when I'm done with a call, whether it's in a podcast, someone will be like, oh my God, either you're feeling energized or I'm just feeling tired. There's a lot that has been going on. Because what I mentioned, the first imprint was more generational things, especially on the masculine side. This is the energy that is imprinting. There was also the heaviness on the heart that came through. And there's also a lot of things, especially around the pelvic area. There was just like some heaviness of energy that I was just moving there. So for me, it shows that the people who are going to listen to this, these are the areas that they need to focus on. So I would say that's my magic. Basically, I work more with the body and beyond. But more importantly, it's not about, oh, let's find out what is going on here, like using the mind, because at the same time, the mind is what created the problem. So if you're using a mind to solve the problem, it's more harder. So it's more easier for me because I work more with the unconscious, with the body and all the things, and remove them out so that you can have that clarity of what is it that you need, or even align you. Because even when you're talking about death, is that desire, so desires, and then emotions, and then alignment with your higher self, and then trusting your own guidance. And that will decide whether you're going to create heaven or hell in life, because we are the creators.
What I find is that, that what gives you the ability to, if you interact with a client, it will not take very long for you to get a fairly good idea, especially talking about males now, that where
Yeah.
the problems lie. You already have done an analysis of the individual as what do you
Yeah.
believe where the issues, if there are any, are or likely will be. That's probably the key for you and the specialty that you do have. And part of that stems from what you got through your family and your grandparents, when you indicated you follow a particular process that allows you to make those proven
Yeah.
analysis that have worked very, very well for you.
Yeah. And that's what I love, because when you go to a doctor, the doctor will ask you what's going on. For me, I don't get to ask you what's going on. I'll tell you, okay, tell me about this pain here. Because at times, and it's quite interesting because I say everything is energy, and energy is it's a powerful asset. Because when we get into a room, before you can say hi, your energy is the one that is waving and greeting people. And for me, I believe that's the power of being fully embodied. You get it, whether you are in the bedroom or in the boardroom. Who are you showing up as? Who are you being? What energy are you emitting at all times? This is why, even when you're talking about leadership, it's who you are being. You can get into a room and the room just gets quiet because it's the presence of you that is showing up when you have that, when you are grounded within you. And like I said, energy is an asset. So it's one thing that I love, because when people show up, and at times, since you are also an author, it can be through a book. I can be reading a book, and what is written, how emotions people were feeling, I can read that through the book. I can watch whether someone made a video and I'm watching that. They're saying what they're saying, but I know how they were feeling exactly at that moment. It can be even through typing, when you are typing something. And this is why, even when it comes to communication, it's not only, like I mentioned, it's not only what we are saying. Sometimes we can be in relationships, but we are resenting the other, even though we are pretending that we are in love or whatever. But your energy is what your partner feels. You may claim to love your children, but your absence and your emotional instability that you are bringing is what they are getting the most of. This is why it's very important that we get to do this. And even when it comes to communication, one thing that is very important when it comes to communication is listening. And listening is more powerful when we listen without judgment. And at times our fear, our beliefs is getting in the forefront of what is going to come through. And especially when it comes to relationship, I see a lot of people at times finding out what are the red flags? How can I identify a narcissist? Okay, it's information that helps you, but information is useless if when you show up, you are in your head and you are talking. I don't even get to hear what you're saying because in my mind it's kind of like I want to, is it a red flag? What did this person say? And I know that when I started working, I had my own issues in terms of the fear of not being accepted. So at times when we were attending meetings, I would sit there and I would try to go ahead like, okay, fine, in case there's a question or anything, let me be clever and try to answer it. But I miss what is being said, and this is why it's not something that only affects your personal relationship. It also affects your professional relationship. Are you open and willing to listen without judgment, without being defensive? Because that's the only time that you can hear what is being said. And even me, when it comes to doing my work, I show up with the not knowing. If I come with the whether it's textbook information, this is maybe I have to figure. I'm going to miss what is important. So I'm showing up with a clean slate, like, hi, let's have a conversation and see what's going to come here. And then this is when all these things are coming through. It's presence and also being open-minded and also letting go of judgment. If someone is telling me that I'm married, but then I cheated on my partner, if I'm coming with this, oh my God, that's very wrong, I'm going to miss the help that that person need or get to understand. But I'm just open because there's no wrong or right. It's kind of like it's life and we do what we can with what we have. And for me to solve someone is coming through with an open mind, no judgment, and not knowing anything, and then allow whatever that needs to come through to come through. And that's the magic that I use, and I believe we can also learn to be at this level.
Amazing. I want to say it, Gao, correct?
Yeah.
Gao.
Yeah.
It was an amazing discussion. And I'm wondering, am I doing okay, or should I be? Did I come across okay? Don't be too hard on me.
No, you actually you're doing great. You're doing great. I love it. Yeah.
Interesting, very interesting podcast. Very appropriate. Very important for a lot of reasons. What I hear underneath it in particular is to be at peace with who you are, and respect, and then the relationships between the sexes was designed to be what it is, and it is for every single one to over time figure out what it will be and how it will work. And if it works, it is extremely rewarding. If it doesn't, it's the opposite. And obviously, that you found a niche that I believe is very critically important. So it was very, very interesting for not only for myself, but also for the people that listen to our podcast. And I very much appreciate you to being part of my podcast. And for all the people watching us, subscribe to our podcast, share it with others, check out your podcast, and have you got a website that people can contact you on? Maybe just give that to us.
Yes. I'm available at gaomotsemme.com and in social media at Gao Motsemme. Actually, there's a link that I'll also share with you just to give your audience an intro to my work. I call it Orgasmic Clarity. So they can just book a 45 minutes free session and let's find out what is interfering with your success and freedom. I'll share the link with you and you can share it and put it on the notes. Yeah.
We will do that.
And I'll share my website and all. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, Gea. I still have some difficult. It was delightful to have you on my podcast. It was a great deal of appreciation and a great deal of respect for what you're doing, and it's amazing. I love it.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, and I'm also inspired by you. And keep shining.
We'll stay in touch. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye bye.